We've said it many times, the Toronto Raptors are looking to get back into the playoffs for next season. But what if the playoffs alone aren't enough for the front office? And what if they're really hunting a huge trade in the offseason? Well, reports are suggesting just that. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel. This is Amateur Hour Sports, the YouTube channel that's completely dedicated to providing you Toronto Raptors content in videos like this and live streams on the channel. We've had a ton of reports coming out in the last few days giving us further evidence that the Raptors are big fish hunting in the offseason. I've speculated about it a little bit on the channel already because we are heading into an offseason here where, yes, the Raptors have the ambition of getting back into the playoffs. That was made pretty clear at the 2025 NBA trade deadline when they went out and acquired Brandon Ingram. It was kind of a team that was seemingly in a tank mode. It was what was described by Masai Ujiri himself as the first year of the rebuild, but Masai Ujiri historically has not been one to sit and relax on a rebuild, always trying to push this team to a winning position, sometimes for the better, and going out and getting Kawhi Leonard, vaulting him up to the NBA championship in 2019, but sometimes as well for the worse, when maybe it wasn't a team worth investing in. And though Jakob Poeltl is a fantastic player, trading for him at a trade deadline in a season where you were already on the outside of the playoff picture looking in and didn't even get to the playoffs, losing the first round of play-in tournament, that can hinder the team. But he has always been ambitious. He has always been aggressive. And now the Raptors are in a position where there is a pretty solid foundation of talent within the team that just needs to have that player that pushes them over the edge. And the Raptors, in their current state, have the 9th overall pick in the upcoming NBA draft at the end of the month, but also the Raptors have control of all of their first-round draft capital going forward, which gives them the opportunity to pool all of those picks together alongside some tradable contracts for superstars in order to make something big happen. And the big reports are coming out now about Giannis Antetokounmpo. Again, we speculated about it on the channel. We've talked about Giannis's position with the Milwaukee Bucks, where Giannis kind of maybe looking at the Bucks right now and thinking, this is not going to be a team the caliber that gets me to a championship. And he, alongside every other, fringe playoff team, lower side of playoff teams in the Eastern Conference, like any team in the East right now, will be smelling blood. The state of the Eastern Conference. Question marks about the Cavaliers because of their somewhat early exit from the playoffs. The Boston Celtics, likely without Jason Tatum for at least most of, if not the entire season next year. Indiana Pacers, despite going to the NBA Finals, perhaps winning an NBA championship, nobody really perceives them as the top dog team to beat in the East. And the same can be said about the New York Knicks. There's no real humongous threat. The East seems pretty wide open for teams like the Toronto Raptors if they can make a big trade. And Giannis recognizes that as well, because reports are suggesting from very good sources like Brian Windhorst that the Raptors are looking to land Giannis. Here's what he had to say in a recent podcast on the Hoop Collective.
The Raptors are a team that is starting to make noise within the league about looking for a big fish. If you're an Eastern Conference team that's in the middle of the pack, you're looking at the teams in front of you going, some of them may not be able to come together, may be able to stay together. Boston is hurt. And so there are some teams that sniff the ability to make a move. And I think Toronto is one of those teams. Any team that wants to make a move this summer, especially a team in the Eastern Conference, you're going to have Giannis on the board. From their initial conversations, teams in the league are getting the impression that Toronto is going to try to do something.
So news like this should come as no surprise, but it starts to build up the intrigue for something big happening with the Raptors in the offseason because, I've said a couple times now, we've speculated about it and we said they're in position to go and do this, but now we're actually getting the noise that, Toronto is hunting to do something here. They don't have the 7th overall pick, 8th overall pick, or even the 1st overall pick, but they do have the 9th overall pick, which is still a pretty big draw in a pretty talented draft class. And if a trade is going to go down, it pretty much is going to have to include that 9th overall pick to make it worth it for a team making this trade. And this situation has changed a lot for the Milwaukee Bucks because like 2 months ago, I would have said, look, we've been down this path before with Giannis. We've done this whole thing where, hey, there now is a really good opportunity for Giannis to move on. The Raptors are poised. They're in a great position to make an offer here, and nothing materialized. And I didn't really want to start down this whole pathway again a couple of months ago, but things really changed with that Damian Lillard injury. And it's unfortunate to see a player go down like that, but like that's just the reality. This is just the current situation. Damian Lillard is likely going to be out for most of, if not the entire season next year. And without Damian Lillard, like the Bucks were already kind of on the fringes of being a competitive team for winning a championship. Without Damian Lillard, they have no chance of getting there. And Giannis, he's not getting any younger here at 30 years old. He's starting to recognize that as well. And the fit does exist. I don't want to overrate the relationship between Masai Ujiri and Giannis Antetokounmpo of the past, as other people have done previously, even maybe myself on the channel once upon a time. I'm not going to overrate that, but the relationship does exist. And it's certainly a market in Toronto that Giannis can absolutely thrive in from a basketball standpoint. And I think from a personal standpoint as well, building up his personal brand. It could only stand to improve going to, it's not a big NBA market, but it is a humongous market worldwide, Toronto. And I think that's something that could really be beneficial for somebody like Giannis to take on. And some reports are coming out suggesting that there is mutual interest. Like obviously the Raptors are going to be interested. Some reports are saying there's mutual interest with Giannis as well. Giannis wanted to come here. That's coming from Doug Smith, the Toronto Star. I don't really take that as super duper credible, but okay. Some noise at least being put out that there is a mutual want for a trade like this to materialize. But what does this trade actually need to look like? I've talked about it already on this channel, but let's kind of rehash what this situation really will be. So the Raptors have big enough contracts where that this isn't really a complicated maneuver for the Raptors to take on. The easy one here is Scottie Barnes, and using Scottie Barnes in this trade makes it relatively easy to get done because that is the blue chip piece going the other way that I think Milwaukee would be content to start building around, start over with. Like that's somebody that you can really convince them to be the centerpiece going forward. So, I feel like if Scottie Barnes is on the table, this is a trade that is going to get done. What else would have to be included? Well, fit-wise, there's still conversations about, the issue RJ Barrett in that fit. As much as we've talked about it, I don't want to keep having to give this asterisk and preface this. RJ Barrett's a great player. You do wonder if that style caters towards winning. Maybe that's a player the Bucks would still be interested in taking on. Regardless, financially, player that kind of has to be included in the deal. You could involve Emmanuel Quickley, but then you're without a point guard, and then you have like Barrett, Giannis, Brandon Ingram. The fit's a bit clunky. That team needs a point guard, so I'd be inclined to keep Emmanuel Quickley, but I would also be very inclined to keep Scottie Barnes. As much as Barnes, Giannis, and Brandon Ingram isn't a phenomenal fit, I think there's just so much talent there that you are going to be able to make it work in some capacity, and the Giannis fit next to Brandon Ingram reminds me a lot of Giannis next to Chris Middleton, which is obviously extremely successful as a duo for the Milwaukee Bucks, so that really does intrigue me. If the Raptors were hell-bent on keeping Scottie Barnes, now the trade might have to become something that involves Emmanuel Quickley alongside RJ Barrett. And again, these are trades that have like the entire catalog of picks involved in it. It's going to cost potentially 4 first-round picks and 2 swaps. And that includes the 9th overall pick. Maybe with Scottie Barnes, do we trim it down to 3 first-round picks and 2 swaps? Perhaps, but 4 picks may still be the price to actually get this trade done. So it's a complicated one when trading for a superstar like this, because in the case of Giannis, you do need to trade enough to get him, but you also need to have a good enough team remaining in place for Giannis to actually compete for a championship here. So will Giannis want to come to Toronto if it's Scottie Barnes involved? I still think there is a contender here if Scottie Barnes goes the other way. Emmanuel Quickley, some form of a shooting guard that hopefully can be acquired, whether it be in the draft, whether it be in free agency, or whether it be somebody on the roster like a Grady Dick or Jacoby Walter really stepping up. Emmanuel Quickley, the shooting guard, Giannis, Brandon Ingram, and Poeltl. That to me is very, very close to championship caliber, especially within the Eastern Conference. Now, getting over the line against a Western Conference team might be difficult. We're getting a little bit too far ahead of ourselves. That is absolutely a contender in the current state of the Eastern Conference. You'd still want it to look a little bit better. Is it a little bit better with Scottie Barnes involved? Is there a way of moving pieces where you still keep Emmanuel Quickley and Scottie Barnes, but land Giannis with RJ Barrett as the centerpiece of a trade? that makes it a lot more difficult. I struggle to come up with a trade that has enough to get Giannis that doesn't include RJ Barrett and either Emmanuel Quickley or Scotty Barnes. So that's going to be the complication in making this trade. Personally, I'm comfortable with anybody being involved, not like everybody, but if, two of any of the pieces are involved, I'm comfortable with being anybody other than Brandon Ingram, because that's the guy you went out and got. That's the guy you got to keep. And I think that is such a good fit next to Giannis Antetokounmpo. And the second player is Jakob Poeltl. Not because he's untouchable in terms of his abilities, but positionally, you are going to absolutely 100% need that style of player to be in the lineup. The rim protector, the big next to Giannis that allows Giannis to play the help defense for and do so much more on defense. Kind of like what Brook Lopez was doing defensively, except even better than that by having Jakob Poeltl in the team. So Brandon Ingram, Jakob Poeltl, for me, you don't want to have involved in this trade whatsoever. But the rest, some sort of combination is there that exists. And there's probably not a lot of combinations of that I would really say no to. Like realistic, like you choose two of the players in the picks, there's probably not a lot of combinations there that I say no to. I think Giannis does vault this team into the next level and into a phase where this team can seriously win a championship next season. Still a long way away from happening, but look, rumors and reports are starting to come out. It would have made sense before these rumors and reports started to come out. Masai Ujiri is in the last year of his contract. Is he trying to make a splash before maybe those conversations start to happen? If his time is up, does he want to take one last shot at it with the Raptors? There are a lot of things pointing towards something big like this happening. And it could be Giannis. That's the name that's being come out, that it's being put out there. But it could be other names. They could go fishing for somebody like Kevin Durant. Could go fishing for somebody like Trae Young. Even like, does LaMelo Ball become somewhat available in the offseason? There are a lot of players out there with potential to be that big fish for the Raptors. None bigger to me than Giannis, who is 30 and is still playing prime basketball, MVP level basketball. There are a lot of options out there. And it's starting to feel like something big could be coming for this Raptors team.